According to Walton, 13% of Americans battle alcohol usage disorder, or AWE. This disorder doesn't discriminate. It can affect either 1 out of 10 people, which means that it's likely to affect you and affect your relationships. In this presentation, I will be talking about 3 main points. Number 1 is analyzing what current literature has found in regards to how alcohol is affecting relationships. Number 2 is how alcohol-related behavior is manifesting itself. And then number 3 is the lasting effects AUD has on relationships. To understand how alcohol is changing relationships, it must first be understood what alcohol does to the brain. For starters, it affects the frontal lobe and the frontal cortex. These parts of the brain are kind of the decision-making parts of the brain. They kind of control our ability to make wise decisions. According to Rogers, George, and Duke, alcohol, even in moderate amounts, can decrease decision-making functions. I think a great example of how impaired decision-making can affect relationships is to consider maybe an argument that you're having with your partner. Tempers are flaring, things are getting kind of heated. In a situation where you've been drinking, your ability to make wise decisions in that argument are impaired. And it can take something that's maybe started out as a small bickering back and forth, and because you're making poor decisions, it can turn into a situation where maybe you're saying things that are really aggressive or even physically lashing out. So because alcohol impacts the frontal lobe and the frontal cortex and your ability to make good decisions, it can also really harm your relationship. Next, alcohol can impact relationships because of the way alcohol violence manifests itself. For starters, alcohol is continuously playing a key role in sexual assaults. According to Abby, 1/2 of sexual assaults includes some sort of alcohol usage. In another study by Abby, it was found that alcohol increases the likelihood of a sexual assault happening. So an example of this would be maybe a victim who's been drinking. They're drunk and they're not even able to make good decisions. Maybe they're not able to consent or something like that. They're not able to physically get away if someone is trying to hold them down to rape them. And then last is if they're blacked out, they're not able to defend themselves at all. The perpetrator, if they've been drinking, alcohol can make them a lot more aggressive, and they'll probably do things that they wouldn't normally do. So according to the research, alcohol usage in excess increases the chances of sexual assaults occurring. Finally, what are the lasting effects of alcohol in relationships? For one, unwanted pregnancies. NAMI et al. Found that 14% of unwanted pregnancies were a result of heavy alcohol usage. Pregnancy in children can change a relationship drastically. Maybe it starts out as simple added stress, but it can also cause issues of big arguments about the child, about keeping the child, and things like that. It can add a lot of stress. Another way alcohol is changing relationships is because of the long-term results of alcohol-related violence. As mentioned before, alcohol is related to violence, and according to Kessler et al., people who have suffered from domestic violence are more likely to suffer from mental illnesses, such as depression and anxiety. So the lasting effects that alcohol in excess can cause are things like unwanted pregnancies, or even things that are really severe like anxiety and depression. So in conclusion, much of the information about alcohol in relationships was negative. According to the research, when using alcohol, there's a lack of productivity to the brain's main decision-making central, causing a lot of irresponsible behavior. This behavior could be as simple as saying the wrong thing or as severe as a sexual assault. Furthermore, relationships can be damaged because of how alcohol-related behavior affects other people. An example of this was found to be the long-term effects of domestic violence. Alcohol may be used frequently in moderation and never impact your relationship, but if alcohol is used excessively, it can be very harmful to your relationship.